What am I going to do with you?
Are we ready?
What am I going to do with her?
Keep me. You're here for the long haul, babe.
No. Glad to be. Well, session 2. Wow, we made it to session 2. We didn't know we were going to even make it past the first one, but want to take a quick second to thank everyone that tuned in, that listened, that gave us feedback, and the questions. We actually had, for our first session, we actually had some questions come in, and we're going to address those too. So thank you. Thank you so much. And again, we're constantly evolving here. We don't know where this thing's going, so we're going to take it from there. And just to recap, last time we talked about us taking those leaps of faith. For those that tuned in, talking about us taking those leaps of faith, and what it meant to leave the comfort of the security blanket and go into something, and then are transitioning into working 2 jobs and whatnot. So we're going to touch a little bit more on that today. But
yeah, so right now we're in this phase of life where you're working at a telecommunication company and marketing, directing, and sales, and you've taken your real estate license exam, you've passed, and you're working real estate, you're getting in the niche of that. And I am teaching full time and going to night school. And some of the things that I think backtracking and going through this process, as we lived parallel lives at that time. And where were you at and how did you feel? Oh,
your shirt.
I'm exposing myself.
Why did we get 5,000 views? I'm sure my shirt flight.
I'm exposing myself here. But now let's read a concentration. But we were talking about that would bring a lot of views, right? I just lost my train of thought.
How we brought it full circle, right? Because that's what you're saying. It's like jumping into it, leaving the comfort blankets, both of us, and getting into starting new careers, starting new paths, right?
Yes. And one of the things is, how did you balance, because right now we're living parallel lives, and how did you balance work life, family life, like working at the telecommunications company? How did you balance working real estate and the family life?
It was very difficult because it was something new. We had done something for so long, and we had our routines.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was big, the routines.
Especially with little children.
Yeah, because you break those routines. So we had to fit school and we had to fit work into these this routine that we did not want to break, right? Because we had younger kids with nap times. Y'all listening know how important nap times are. So incorporating starting a new career, I was in an industry with the telecommunications, just a little backstory, where they have strict guidelines. You can't have cell phones out on the floor when you're talking with clients. There's a lot of things that go involved. Well, anybody out there that has anything to do with real estate knows that you need your cell phone to do it. So a funny story is, I would get to the point to where my phone would be ringing. Of course, I had it on silent, and I'd have to get up to, quote unquote, go to the bathroom. So I'd go to the restroom and I'd be in the bathroom in a stall on the phone with clients because I didn't want to miss that call, right?
You flushing in the background.
I tried to time it when there was no one there, but so I'm in there for 10 minutes sometimes at a time. And then on my breaks, I'm out on the phone. And then on lunch, I'm on the phone. And then when I get off work, so I had to get home because you were headed to school. And so it was really, really hard to take the kids with me to go show homes and stuff like that. But you make it work. It's uncomfortable
because we're here.
Yeah, it was really uncomfortable because the boys are looking at you like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, I think we always said that we were like in a trance. I felt like we were in a trance for those 3 years.
Yeah.
How do you feel like balancing, talk about like dad life, because balancing during this time, I would teach all day, then get home at 5. We would pass the torch. I would run out of the house because I had to be at class at 6. And so I went to class from 6 to 10. And so then you were like a single dad in the evenings. Do you remember any of that time?
And I don't know if you remember me telling you this, but it was kind of like when my day started, the stopwatch started. And it was like a countdown stopwatch, like I guess I should say timer. So it was like a timer started. So things I needed to get done, I had to get done by a certain time because I know when I had to go into, like you said, dad mode. If I didn't get anything done by that time, it couldn't be handled on the phone. It was nerve wracking, especially when you have deals you're working with clients, and and I was transparent with my clients. Told my wife's in grad school how to do this, but yeah, it got a little crazy there for a bit.
Yeah, I brought Lincoln with me. Jackson was at elementary school and at the local elementary school. And so I remember waking up in the mornings, getting them ready, getting lunches ready, getting breakfast, getting lunches ready. Jason was,
Everybody knows that. Yeah, right. It's like everybody's familiar with the whole morning routine.
and going to school, teaching. And then after getting out of school, making sure the kids were shuffled. And then Jason having that stress of Jason's got to be home by a certain time. And we didn't have a window for you to go help clients back then. Like now that I'm in the industry,
Weekends. And I didn't see y'all from Friday afternoon to Sunday evening because my weekends by Wednesday of that week were just stacked because I had to work. And then when I got home, you were off school on the weekends, but you were still doing papers and studying. But that being said, let me her doing papers and this and that. Then can I fast forward? Not fast forward, but talk about like our how we balanced being married, going through the transition, both you doing the schooling and me starting a new career. I felt just in mine at times, and if anybody out there has felt this way too, it's like I support my wife, she supports me. We both respect each other. I just think what it was we didn't really understand what each other were, what each of us were doing. Like I saw you on the laptop all the time, and then you saw me.
so you knew I was writing papers. Jason, like he, editing my papers and reading my papers for me and making sure
I didn't have enough on my plate. I'm just playing, of course.
Um, but yeah, we didn't fully respect each other. We respected each other of, hey, we're both taking this leap of faith, going into something new because we had to, because
it was there. I think it was understanding.
Yeah, we understood each other.
We didn't take time to understand because we were going 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. And I was too tired. Like by the time I got home at 10 and then I woke back up, had the kid. I don't remember what time the kids started, but 6:30. And so I think that this chapter in our lives to tell listeners and viewers is just really, if you're struggling right now, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you are challenging and you have like that mom guilt or that dad guilt of not spending enough time with your kids during this time, now we have plenty of time to spend with our kids. And we did spend time with our kids. Our kids did come along with us and do things that we integrated. Yeah. We integrated the kids with us, but you still have that guilt. Like I had that guilt of not being able to tuck my kids in to go to sleep at night. And then you did it, or sitting down and eating dinner with y'all.
Or me missing everything on the weekends. Jackson's soccer game when he was 3 and 4, or not.
Well, yeah, he was older by this, but yeah. Well, yeah, whatever events, sporting events or whatever we were doing.
I didn't miss that. So, because you have this fear as a dad, and I don't know if any other dads feel this way too, I'm sure, is like, my kid's going to always just remember that I wasn't there. They're not going to remember that I was out working hard and trying to do whatever I could to make it happen. But you have this fear as a dad. It's kind of like, what if he looks back on pictures, or what if this, and he says, where was dad? Where was dad? So that just always resonated in my head. I was just like, man. And I always had to remind myself, no, you're doing this for your family. And I think sometimes we have to step outside ourselves and say, look, you're doing the right thing. You don't question it if it's for your family. I mean, if you're doing it, you got to go.
Flinches and hard times.
You got to run with it,
Yeah, we definitely had, I think that during that time, the word grit was like a popular word, like going around on social media and stuff like that. And like grit was definitely what both you and I have. It's instilled in us, and grit definitely has gotten us through that time. I think we journeyed that 3 years in our life. So, yeah, wow. That was, and it really, it went by so fast, incredibly fast. Some of the challenges that I had in school, is I felt like an imposter that we had on my show gate. And again, he's giving me eyes here. Like, I guess I should have wore a camisole. But you do realize that you're in the direction that
Well, you're distracting me.
if you see up my shirt, in my shirt, that you're the only viewer in here, right?
Man, and I cannot help.
It's not like it in the camera here. So
Sorry.
yes,
I apologize.
you're just wanting a birthday present this week. It's your birthday. So, so we're at this time in our life, it's parallel and we're not seeing each other and we're starting new careers. And tell me about like how you felt. Like, I know I felt like imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah. Very familiar with that.
And my imposter was, here I am. I felt very incompetent. I went into graduate school. I feel incompetent with where I'm at. I don't feel qualified. You're editing my papers. And then I have this extreme amount of anxiety to have this perfection. And it took me a while.
We're our worst critic, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're hardest on ourselves first.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about, jumping into careers, period, was being your worst critic. It's better that's why we jumped, is because we want to, right? We want to, if we're going to be hard on ourselves, we don't need anybody else telling us that we need to reevaluate something. How did you feel jumping into real estate? I know that you have given lots of presentations and one of them is your Where's Waldo. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we touched on this on the first session too, a little bit, but when you come into any new profession, there's always someone that's been in it longer than you, right? So there's that person, and everybody knows that person is, or those people are, so to speak. And those people now are my mentors, and I'm still friends with them today, which I'm very thankful for them. But when you get in, when you got into a new profession and you're in a small market like we are in our hometown, and there's not hundreds, but thousands of people that do the same thing you do, there's two parts to this. The first part is deer in the headlights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imposter syndrome. Do I belong here? Or am I part of this clan? Do I belong to the same clan these people do? And if so, how am I going to tell a potential client, or how am I going to convey that to a client? Like, hey, I know there's thousands of us, but you need to use me.
Yeah.
You need to use me, right? So you really take some self-reflection, thinking outside the box to say, like, okay, how do I make that happen? And it can be intimidating when you're going through and you're, someone's been in the business 10 times longer than you have. And all you want to do is listen to what they had to say, because, God gave you 2 years, right? But when I do presentations and stuff back to that, I like to talk about, and I like to bring up the Where's Waldo, because it's the first thing that pops in my head. As kids, we open these books and there's thousands of people, but you always ended up finding Waldo, right? And how you found Waldo is because he stood out, right? He stood out. And that's with branding, and that's with marketing. And we'll do episodes probably in the future where we maybe do a whole session on marketing.
Yeah. So let's definitely say you found the niche in the branding and making the Barth Group stand out. So
people make fun of me. They're like, you brand your underwear too, I bet. I don't.
Actually, he will brand anything. Like, he loves creating logos.
Brand out to stand out.
Yeah.
There's all those cliches, not to sound cliche, but it really is. But that's just such a small part of it. Branding's such a small part of it. It's, if you're going to be that brand, you got to be that brand. You gotta, that's why I intentionally did brand with our name in it, because it represents us. And there's so many things that go into this. And we always say an equation that we live by.
We do.
Yeah. It's a 3-part equation. It's reputation, branding, repetition, and reputation.
Yep.
So
and that's
mindful.
For any company. That's for anybody starting a business. That's for anybody that currently has a company. Is go back to those 3 key elements.
Mortgage. We could be an insurance. You could run a daycare. You could be a teacher. Everybody has a social life, and you're not saying that we have to be in the convent here, but you got to be the person you are, that you want to be perceived to your potential clients, customer base. Your repeat clients, those are people, they're going to research you. And everybody researches everybody. It's 2000, we're in the 2024, 25. And if you're the person who is being this person, then at night you're on social media hooting and hollering, that's fine. That you're allowed to do that, but those people are going to see that. And, you're auditioning all the time.
During this time, you're finding your niche and I'm finding my niche, and mine wasn't really imposter, because you don't really have imposter syndrome as a teacher. I guess maybe you can. I don't want to say that you can't. But mine was more of, are you going to be the maverick teacher? And that was like a really big thing to me. And a maverick teacher is the difference of, and all the teachers that are out there listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You probably always have one, but this is what society tells us to teach and tells us to do, and, check off the boxes of the content and the teaks and everything that we're supposed to do. But then here it is, you have this living, breathing classroom, and
20-something kids, right?
well, yeah, I think I ended my last year was like 28 kindergartners. And it's like, here you have this body of children, and sometimes education just takes on a life of itself inside the classroom. And as a maverick teacher, which I kind of went with what my gravitated to what my students needed instead of
word too. Can I see if I got it?
What?
Reggio.
Oh yeah, well, it was Reggio. Yeah, but this was even after that. Just the Reggio style is more like Montessori. But
didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, to make your teaching, you're fine, but just being a maverick in your industry. And that goes back to being Where's Waldo, standing out and going, okay, I know that everybody else is beating to the same drum over here and doing the same thing, but I can't do that. That is not me being the authentic person that I want to be. And I just couldn't do it. Then I would have been an imposter teacher. If I would have said, okay, I'm going to go in and do what everybody else is doing. And as all of my students, parents that are listening, and maybe even my students, because they're probably that old now. But just continue to be your authentic self, and people will gravitate you for that reason.
Yeah, and I think we just talked about that, and you were on a church retreat.
Yeah, this weekend I went on
making authentic relationships and being authentic. I think when you were talking right there about being like a maverick teacher, I think what it was is you knew what you wanted to convey, and you didn't stray away from that.
No, which never have.
Because even if it's not acceptable, you're doing what you thought was right and what you wanted to do. And that turned out, because I would hear the parents that would talk to you and stuff like that. So it's the same thing in professions. I think if you have a vision, every great vision starts right with one person, and every journey starts with one step. But, if you have that vision, don't let anybody tell you can't do that. I mean, that's BS, go for it. All you can do is either be told no or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, just do something else. I mean, try another method. And that's the beauty of failure. Yeah, you got to have that. And I think not being afraid to fail is is a good thing, as far as if you're not afraid to fail, then you're open to see what's yet to come. Does that make any sense? Yeah. So yeah, definitely. So.
And you and I both respect each other in an element. So let's kind of dive backwards for a second. So, So we talked about how we didn't really respect each other. Well, we respected each other, but we didn't understand each other's career implementations at that time, or what we were actually in the moment of doing.
Oh yeah.
And it created a lot of animosity between the two of us. My frustrations was real estate. You're constantly on the phone. The demand of real estate is on the phone, and answering text messages and answering emails. And we've always been face value with someone. So if someone's standing in front of us, we're going to commit 100% of our time to that person. And so if the phone rang or you got a text and I was in the middle of a conversation, you would, I got to answer this phone. I got to answer this client. And which is funny because I do that now.
Well, you do that now, but there was one time, and she would always get so angry. She'd be like, I was right in the middle of talking, and you said you needed to get that phone call. Well, I don't know if you remember, we were driving, and it was like a Saturday, and this number came through on the caller ID, and we were having a conversation. I was like, I got to get this. You're like, you really have to get that. I answered the call. It was a client from, I think, Oklahoma, a new client that found us on Google and wanted to sell they're selling their home they wanted to buy here. And it was like a $500,000 home. And at the time, I mean, we were going into it. And so, yeah. And so the following week I met with those people, they became a client. And Melinda, I don't think you've ever gotten upset about taking a phone call. It could be that one phone call. So, and we can even do a little branch off. We say we're going to go down some rabbit holes. Business owners, you have to be accessible and you have to have that comfortable balance, like we were talking.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that one phone call could be a call that, I've had
changes your business.
I've had people tell me before that called me on a Sunday, and I just happened to get it, and they said, "You answered your phone call." I called 5 other people, and no one answered. Are we saying yes? Work on Sundays. No, we're not. We're saying be accessible and value yourself and your business, and doing that can mean success or failure, but it's what you're willing to do and be comfortable with.
So I had frustrations with you, but I know you had lots of frustrations with me. I know you have a mad respect for teachers.
I do have a mad respect for teachers. So let me start off by saying, yes, I have a very, very huge respect for teachers, because being naive and being someone that just was out there, I just thought basically that's someplace and please don't get mad when I say this, because that's why I started. I preluded with, I have a mad respect for teachers. That I thought, that's just a place my kid goes from 8 in the morning to 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon. But then being being married to a teacher, and we'll dive more into that. But I would get home, and I wouldn't understand. She'd get home, and I thought, okay, I have my wife. She's not a teacher; she's a mom and a wife now. And then she'd be on the phone with parents. She'd be on a phone with other teachers. And then she'd be on her laptop doing lesson plans. And then now it's, bath time, kid, bedtime after dinner. And then now she's back in bed on the laptop again. And I'm like, geez, I said, you're putting in more hours than I am. And so to all the teachers out there, I mean, if you see a teacher, if you're married to a teacher, have a teacher as a mom, a brother, a husband, son, daughter, thank you. Because y'all put in some major work.
Yeah,
and they're not appreciated enough, as far as I think. There's 2 categories. There's teachers and there's veterans, and I don't think that they both don't get the recognition they deserve. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah.
Yeah, we definitely went through the trials of learning to deeply respect our careers, and when we got there, then we'll talk about that in our next session, but how we jumped again.
And understanding each other, what we did. And once I opened my eyes and saw what she was doing, I'm like, wow, she's like really doing a lot of work. And then it was vice versa. And then I think from then we kind of had a better understanding, and each side leaned in to help a little bit more on their portions.
Also, we both are very serving, and I think that it's hard to compartmentalize the serving aspect that we both have in giving, because we're both so 100% committed. And when we're there to help someone, we're going to see it through to the very end of whatever it is. And so, if I had a student that, maybe there was a divorce situation that was arising with, the parents of one of my students, then I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there for the family. I was committed. And then I know with you in real estate, like, you're there through the end. And, a lot of times people think in our industry, oh, we just buy and sell houses. It's not. We are serving families and communities. And there's, as we go through these podcasts, we'll share some of those heart-wrenching stories, happy ones too, but it's real life. And that's where it comes back with being authentic. Like we just had to say.
And it's humbling too.
It is.
When you reflect back. So that being said, though, we actually had, like I said in the beginning, we had a couple of people that had questions. Right.
Yes. Okay.
And thank you, by the way. And y'all know who you are. We don't name names on this, so you could always send us questions, and we'll always be there to address them on the podcast. So one of the things was, and it was a young lady, and she was getting into the insurance, but she had another full-time job, and asked basically, how did you know when it was safe to take that leap and go in, because we talked about that in our first episode.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you know when it's safe to go in and quit your job and go into that full time? And to answer that, and thank you for the question, but to answer that, there's not a right time or a wrong time. There really isn't. You have to set yourself up. And what we usually say is have 6 months of bills in the bank. So to address that specific question that she was asking is, have 6 months of bills in the bank, because you want to be the best you when you go into your new career or your new endeavor, whatever it was you're starting, without stress. If you're sitting there your first month and you're like, oh my gosh, I just took this leap of faith, I no longer have insurance and now I can't make my mortgage, you're not going to shine and be your best you that you could be. So I hope if you're listening to the second session that answered your question, and we truly thank the interaction from the few that did send us some questions. So y'all keep those coming. And let me take this moment also to say, if y'all want to, if y'all are enjoying this, please subscribe to our channel. You'll see the subscribe button is somewhere around here. Here, I don't know where Karen wanted me to point, but and then share it with your friends too. And we're going to touch on everything. I know we said it before too. This is going to evolve. Y'all are going to evolve with us on this. So it's going to be, we're going to talk about parenting. We're going to talk about, entrepreneurship and faith and spiritual journeys and professional journeys and pitfalls and heartaches and victories and a little bit of everything. So I'm excited, and hopefully we'll see a session 3, huh?
Yeah, learn something new. Yeah, the session 3 gets into some little nitty gritty about how we purchased our first investment property.
Yeah, we purchased our first investment. Mel's full-time teaching.
Yeah,
and we're going from there. And we start a team. We started a real estate team.
Yeah, so we're gonna tell you a little bit about that. So
yeah, that was scary. But until then, though, that's enjoy the inhuman. Love everyone. Thanks, guys.